Here we go with spot number 2 on the top 10 list, and who else could it be but this guy? You want to talk about coming out of nowhere with pretty much no expectations and being one of the best players on the team. You want to talk about developing at hyper speeds, just going from a nobody coming out of college to starting caliber to budding star to superstar to all pro in what felt like less than 2 months. You want to talk about being a huge part, a massive part of what made the team ultimately work well enough to have a winning record and make the playoffs in 2022. You got to talk about this guy. He's got it all. He's got exceeding expectations by about 30 miles. He's got the incredibly high ceiling where you just know he's only going to get better. He's got the all-around performance. There's just not a whole lot I can take away from this particular player, and he earned number 2 on this list. I imagine most people know who I'm talking about. I imagine most people are totally down with it. But here's a guy who overcame a lot to be one of the best players on the Seahawks in 2022. So here we go, number 2. Here we go, number 2, Tariq Woolen. And now we're getting into the really fun stuff. And again, to understand what Tariq Woolen was for the Seahawks in 2022, we need to go back to draft day, day 3 of the draft, selecting him. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved the pick. It was one of my favorite picks the Seahawks have ever made in my lifetime. I immediately felt something special about this one. But at the same time, I was aware of the limitations. I was aware of the caveats here. Tariq Woolen was a player who in college barely played the position of cornerback. And when you draft him going into the NFL, knowing he only played at UTSA for basically a couple years, knowing he missed games, knowing he's incredibly raw, you know that you're probably not looking at a whole lot of production that first year, maybe even the first 2 years, right? That's just a reasonable expectation to have for any player. This guy was playing wide receiver until very recently. He doesn't really understand how to play the position. So when we drafted him, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was going to work out great. But I was also aware it was going to take time. So going into 2022, I straight up expected Tariq Woolen to maybe not even play on defense the whole season. Well, training camp came and went. Woolen was making a big impression. His recovery speed was just constantly giving him the opportunity to make plays on the ball, even when his technique failed him a little bit. There were moments in practice where he was just consistently putting it out there that he already belonged. And you could see that Pete Carroll's ability to develop a corner was really taking hold with this particular player. And then you get to week 1, and Tariq Woolen is starting. First game of his career against Russell Wilson in a Monday Night Football game. And he's starting at cornerback. And he goes out there, and I'm not going to say he played perfectly. Of course not. He had 2 big penalties, but he didn't allow a catch. Yeah, he didn't allow a catch as a starting corner playing almost the whole game. And immediately, it was evident that we had something maybe even beyond what I was anticipating. Very quickly, Woolen developed even beyond that. By week 3, he was intercepting passes. By week 4, he had a big pick 6 on a play that you wouldn't expect very many corners in the entire NFL to be able to make, where he just uses his recovery speed. And by mid-season, he looked like one of the best cornerbacks in the league in multiple areas. He looked like a Pro Bowler already, and as the year went on, he just continued to build and build and build on the performances until by the end of the year, he was one of the best players on the team. Yeah, the playoff game wasn't his best look, admittedly. By the end of the year, he was occasionally getting beat, which was a little bit of a step down from where he was in the middle of the year when it seemed like teams had just given up on trying to throw his way. But at no point was Tariq Woolen playing poorly this year, and the numbers, both basic and advanced, speak for themselves. 6 interceptions tied for the league lead as a rookie with barely any college experience at the position. He also had 3 fumble recoveries. He had 16 passes defensed, which put him in the top 5 for all defensive players in the NFL. And whatever you want to say about his ability to take away the ball, he did it. He was making plays on the ball constantly. Hardly a game went by where he wasn't making some kind of play on the ball to either prevent a big play or take the ball away. So, with all that, knowing that he's a rookie, knowing that he's raw, knowing he's still learning the position, and by some people's own admission doesn't really understand the nuances of playing cornerback yet, you would think, oh, he must be getting burned, right? He must be getting toasted. He must be giving up 1,000 yards receiving, and then he's just making interceptions every now and then because he gets targeted so much. Not true. Not even close. Depends on what site you use. Depends on what source you use. But no matter what source you use, you're going to see a cornerback who is doing a pretty awesome job taking away plays and also making plays. Tariq Woolen started every game for the Seahawks in 2022, barely missed any plays, and he got targeted, according to PFR, 66 times, allowed basically 51% completion, 52%, 420 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Very, very strong numbers. If you want to use PFF, they have slightly different numbers. 68 targets, 38 receptions allowed, something like a QB rating allowed of 70. I think they gave him a couple more yards than PFR did, but still extremely good. So no, this is not a case of a guy who just jumps every route and hopes to guess right sometimes and gives up big plays but also makes big plays. No, this guy is preventing big plays and making big plays. He is shutting down opposing receivers and also taking the ball away repeatedly. We all remember the passing chart against the Raiders when Derek Carr basically decided, I'm not going to go that way. I'm not challenging Tariq Woolen. I am targeting other people all day long. I am not going to try to go Woolen's way. He was not the only quarterback who did that in 2022. So Tariq Woolen pretty much overnight became a shutdown corner, became a guy who was a playmaker, and the only thing you can really say about his game is he needs to become a better tackler, which is not a surprise to anybody when you look at what he was doing in college and you look at the fact that he's young and inexperienced, and he does have some stuff to learn. That should not be a surprise to anybody. Yes, he needs to learn how to tackle a little bit better, but bottom line is this. We got an all-pro caliber player in the 5th round as a rookie. If that isn't value beyond anything imaginable, if that isn't deserving of the number 2 spot on this list, then I don't really know what is. So Tariq Woolen is number 2. He really brought something special. Think about it like this. The Seahawks' only real saving grace on defense in 2022 was their ability to force turnovers, take the ball away. And Tariq Woolen was responsible for a lot of that. 6 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries. If you didn't have Tariq Woolen, you probably would have been bad there too. And then what? So, we've got 1 spot left on the list, and you'll be seeing that tomorrow afternoon. But for now, know that my number 2 player on the Seahawks is the rookie cornerback, Tariq Woolen, deserving of Defensive Rookie of the Year, regardless of if he wins it or not. The only reason why he's not number 1, honestly, the only reason why I can't put him number 1 is at the end of the year, you have to look at the numbers, look at the stats, and understand why you are where you are. More on that tomorrow, but Tariq Woolen, well-deserved at number 2 on the list of best Seahawks of the 2022 season. See you guys later. Go Hawks.